generic cups this morning.
What happened to the Good Morning
I don't
America cups?
know.
We used to have Good
Can't
Morning.
afford that and me.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, no.
Well, it's nice to have you back.
Well, thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Bill Ritter. Welcome to our show. This is Robin Roberts in for a second week. You did well last week, and
Oh, it was either I did well or I didn't do it well enough, and you were going to give me another shot to see if I can make up for what
You
happened.
Oh my goodness!
Oh
I think he's trying to say something.
no! I don't know.
What is it? What is it?
Oh, it's soy. It's soy.
Is that? It is real soy. It's not ice cream. It is soy. Turn that off for 1 second. I'll introduce him. How do you turn it off? Oh, there we go.
Thanks,
Mr.
Robert.
Soybean. Perhaps you recognize the face. If not
Soy
the face,
bomb.
I'm sorry,
Not
Mr.
soy.
Soy Bomb. I knew this.
Bean.
But if not the face, then the chest. This is the man who, whose real name, Michael Portnoy. Michael, hello. Nice to meet you. Robin Roberts, Robin Young, who we'll introduce in just a second. Her
She's
first
like-
entree on Good Morning America Sunday gets disrupted. Thank you. Soy Bomb was the guy who interrupted Bob Dylan's song and performance at the Grammys, and he is now with us on our show. He is a performance artist here in New York, and has several statements to make a little later in the show, apparently. Michael, thank you for joining us. He's going to explain actually what performance art is, why he does things like this. Yes, okay. You want to sit on the couch? Because I think you might need it. Have a seat.
Please,
Walk
have a
right
seat.
in front.
Sit next
There we
to
go.
me, Soy Bomb.
Michael Portnoy, and we have a complaint about him. Portnoy's complaint. I guess it's never been a joke.
Oh,
before.
that's a nice touch. Nice
Okay.
touch.
Soy Bomb, thank you for joining us today. And a little later in the show, we'll talk to you about what it is you exactly do, and more importantly, why. Okay. Robin Roberts, welcome back, as I was saying. You all right?
You brought me back for this? Thank you. Thank you. Oh.
We have other things
Oh, we have a full show.
in the show.
Very unusual.
Imagine you're a journalist, you have a family history, you go researching your family history, and it involves knocking on hundreds of doors saying, hello, hi, I'm nice to meet you. It's nice to meet you. My family used to own yours. That's the story of a journalist named Ed Ball. His family owned plantations and therefore owned
Slaves, and he brought the descendants of the slaves with his family, and it was quite an emotional reunion, and Robin Young was following that story, and boy, it had to be emotional to see that reunion, Robin.
It was really incredible. I have to say, I can't believe I was sitting next to Soy Bomb here. It was an incredible moment. Many people may have seen Ed Ball on the Oprah Winfrey Show. He
Right.
had an emotional reunion with one of the descendants of the slaves, and what he's decided to do is bring together the descendants of his family, the slave owners, and the descendants of these slaves, and not everybody is too happy about it. We'll tell you.
It has really sparked
Yeah.
a debate. No, you know, I have mixed feelings
Even
about it
among
as
our
well.
staff.
Yeah, yeah, we'll
We'll
get
talk
to that.
about that.
Yeah.
Also, 6 months after the accident that took the life of Diana, Princess of Wales, it was 6 months ago, the details of her will are about to be made public, and a British tabloid says her bodyguard now remembers that night, and we'll have that later.
a royal watcher is going to join us, right?
Richard Meinerds.
What is a royal watcher?
You just watch the Royals and get paid for doing it.
Wow, what a job.
Yeah.
Where can we get that? Also, keeping with the hipness of the show, Mr. Soy Bomb. I did call him Soybean, didn't I? I said I was
I
going
tried to save you.
Try not to do that, but I did. Niagaras is a hot new group. You might have heard of them. All the Hollywood young stars are into them, and they're going to be performing right here a little later in our show. But first, we are going to begin with this morning's news. This could be a pivotal week in the Monica Lewinsky matter. President Clinton's confidant, Vernon Jordan, is expected to appear before the grand jury in Washington. Now, as speculation swirls about what Mr. Jordan might say, Mr. Clinton is ending a long family weekend in Utah today. We get more from ABC's Chuck Severston.
President Clinton took a break from his Utah vacation to go fundraising in California. While back in Washington, more stories emerged that supporters will try to sell a new explanation about his relationship with Monica Lewinsky. One possible scenario, the president was simply affectionate with her. But aides insist Mr. Clinton stands behind his previous statements and that he will say no more. Others feel they must talk.
So, to answer my critics about my consistent appearances on television and in the media, I'm like a tire repairman. They leak and I patch.
Meanwhile, Paula Jones, whose suit started all of this, may have run into some trouble with her backers. Her latest fundraising letter says lawyers need an additional $250,000 to keep the case going. The letter came from Bruce Eberly, who has passed on as much as $100,000 to Jones. But the Rutherford Institute, which is paying all Jones's legal bills, says it has seen none of the money.
And I think we've lost quite a bit of money over this, because if you have a single effort, it's obvious you're going to get the money and it's not going to be going somewhere else.
The story promises to roll on in the upcoming week. The grand jury is expected to hear from the president's friend Vernon Jordan, who tried to help Monica Lewinsky find a job after she left the White House. Chuck Sievertson, ABC News.
While in Los Angeles, the president again met with people who know firsthand the power of El Nino. Mr. Clinton called for prayers for tranquil weather, and that prayer is being answered to some degree. No rain is in the forecast for Southern California for 3 to 4 days. The federal government is promising $250 million in disaster aid, but the president noted the human cost is immeasurable.
I received a fax from a friend of mine yesterday whose son lost a childhood friend of his, a young fellow student. I met a young woman in there in the meeting who lost her fiance after he had saved the lives of a woman and her 3 young children. There is very little that anyone can say at this moment to ease the human loss.
At least 7 deaths are blamed on the El Nino-powered storms.
Well, it was a long night for firefighters and residents in Walworth, Wisconsin. A 30,000-gallon propane tank exploded in flames after it was hit by a car yesterday afternoon. Hundreds of people were evacuated, only allowed to return to their homes early this morning. The heat was so intense, firefighters weren't able to check the car to see if anyone was in it.
The United Nations Security Council may take up as early as tomorrow a resolution that ups the ante if Iraq reneges on the weapons inspection agreement. The resolution would trigger an automatic military response. ABC's Morton Dean is in Baghdad. Mort, what do the Iraqis think about this resolution?
Well, good morning, Robin. Quite obviously, Iraq is watching the resolution process rather closely, and quite obviously, they don't like it. Any number of Iraqi officials have said in the past several days that they do not believe any resolution, a weak resolution or a strong resolution, is necessary. They say that agreement signed by the Secretary General and the Deputy Prime Minister of Iraq about a week ago has the force of law, period. No resolution is needed.
Mort, of course, you were with us last Sunday, and I would imagine the atmosphere is a little different this Sunday as compared to last.
Well, no doubt about that. That was quite a Sunday. You'll remember we opened Good Morning America Sunday by talking about the threat of war, but there was a meeting going on. Perhaps there would be an agreement, perhaps not. And just before your show ended, we got the word and heard that there would be an agreement, that quite likely there would be no military action in the days ahead. And during the past week, Robin, the mood has lightened considerably. You see it in the eyes and on the faces of most of the people in this city.
Can imagine so. Thank you, Mort. Mort Dean reporting from Baghdad.
Finally, in our history section of our show, a rare archaeological discovery is finally opened in Egypt. The object was a sarcophagus, or stone coffin. It dates back, get this, at least 2,400 years. The lid was hoisted off it, and inside was, yep, there it is, a mummy. Now, the find is considered pretty rare since it was intact. More than 60 years ago, that's when the last sarcophagus was found untouched by grave robbers.
I am so glad you got that story. Sarcophagus.
Sarcophagus. You know, I noticed, I made a little discovery today, too. This is, I don't know if you can tell, this is a very brand new table. We don't have any say in this. The weekday GMA folks get this.
They rule.
I'm opening the drawer.
Right.
Look, the tags are still in it. This is my own little discovery. Look at that. And it's from a place called Props for Today. Isn't that nice?
That is nice.
Like the sort of GMA IKEA store, I think.
And we can't bring it back because we don't use coasters, so it's damaged.
Can we get coasters for our cups? Because I don't want to ruin this fine piece of furniture.
No.
All right, a lot of show still ahead, and coming up, a dramatic story. One man's efforts to heal wounds still festering in his family since the Civil War. Stay with us. In the Sunday forecast, most of the southern half of the country will see dry weather today. 3 corners of the nation will have rain: the Northwest, New England, and Florida. The northern Rockies and the northern Plain states will have some snow. Those areas will also see the coldest temps. In fact, the mercury in most of the country will stay well below the 50-degree mark. The highest temperatures in the nation will be in the 70s. That's in southern Florida and the desert Southwest. Now, for more on your local weather forecast, check out abcnews.com, on the World Wide Web, or on AOL. And GMA Sunday will be right back after this.
Good Morning America Sunday's weather report is brought to you by Kellogg's Nutri-Grain Bars.
Very artistic.
We like that. Race relations still a very delicate subject in this country, and America remains divided over whether there should be a national apology for slavery.
We asked our correspondent Robin Young to look into one man's apology for his family's involvement in the slave trade and the controversy that it is causing within that family. Good morning, Robin.
Good morning, you guys. Thanks so much. Well, Ed Ball's family legend goes that his ancestors were the good slave owners. Close to 4,000 slaves lived and died on their plantations along the Cooper River in South Carolina's Low Country. Well, now Ed Ball has written this book. It's called Slaves in the Family, and it tells the story of the descendants of the slaves and rewrites the family legend. When I went with him to one of the Ball family's former plantations, he recalled what his father used to say about slaves in the family.
He said, there are 5 things we don't talk about in the Ball family: religion, sex, death, money, and the Negroes.
When I look at parts of this former plantation, I see a beautiful, spacious lawn. You see what?
I see the slave village, because that lawn was the site of 12 slave houses where about 150 people lived.
150 people, and thousands more on 24 other plantations. People whose lives were never mentioned in the Ball family legends. The stories Ed Ball heard growing up were filled instead with illustrious ancestors and genteel living.
There were always stories about white folks, and they never included the slaves. After all, on the plantations, the ratio of black people to white was about 10 to 1, so this was a big gap.
A gap that Ball, a journalist, decided to close. Telling the whole story, both sides of it, would mean reaching back 300 years. His search began at the South Carolina Historical Society.
The plantations were businesses, so they kept very specific records. This is a wonderful one here because it shows all the names. Here's Angola Amy's daughter.
Angola Amy, Bene, Bright Ma. The names, recorded along with crops the Balls grew, stunned Ed. They practically called out to him, and after years of work, they would help lead him to nearly 100 of their descendants. To people like Katie Roper, whose grandma was the slave called Bright Ma.
She said the people that was over her people, the name was Ball.
Finding the Ball slave descendants was hard. Earning their trust was harder.
I was very skeptical, didn't trust him. Wondered what he was going to say, what he was going to do to us. Slavery had occurred and we weren't going to have it again.
But gradually, Katie Roper and her daughters decided they could trust Ed Ball, and slowly they began sharing stories passed down through generations. Katie Roper remembers as a child watching her grandmother jump into a river.
And I said, why you do that? She said, I want to show you what I had done to keep from getting a whipping. I said, they was going to whip you? She said, oh yeah, they would have whipped me good.
Whippings, families torn apart and sold, illegitimate, unacknowledged children. As Ed Ball dug deeper into his past, he found a cruel legacy, one that extended even to his idyllic childhood home, Sullivan's Island.
The ships would arrive from Africa. They were full of 100 to 300 people who were filthy, terrified, sick. There's not even a hand-painted sign that would show that this was the most important place of arrival for black Americans.
Finally, Ball decided it wasn't enough to acknowledge his ancestors' sins. He needed to apologize for them.
When he apologized, that was symbolic of the acknowledgement that I needed and other black people needed of the atrocities that happened in our lives.
The apology brought him closer to the Ropers, but divided his own family. Some of his relatives are furious. Others simply think apologies are unnecessary.
I'm not accountable for something that happened 167 years ago.
But what happened in the past continues to enrage in the present. And Ed Ball hears those voices too, on radio programs as he travels the country.
His family profits from the slavery of my people, and he owes more than a book. I wish he would come to me and tell me, yeah, my people, you were my slaves in my family. I would beat the crap out of them myself.
Even in the face of this, Ed Ball decided he needed to do more than chronicle the Ball plantation descendants. They had to meet.
Because it has to happen. I mean, here we are in America, and we live side by side, and we share this painful legacy. And yet we have tried to keep it out of sight for 130 years. And it has to happen that we finally have a chance to confront it.
And last week, some of the Balls finally did confront their past when descendants of the family and the family's slaves came together for the first time.
We'll show you how that emotional gathering went when GMA Sunday returns.
Good Morning America Sunday is brought to you by the Go RVing Coalition.
We're still talking about everything.
Moving, very moving.
Imagine being introduced to someone whose great-grandfather had enslaved your great-grandmother. What would you say? How would you feel?
We just heard about Ed Ball's dramatic search for descendants of slaves his family once owned. Now we're about to see what happened when the slave descendants he found finally met some of Ball's relatives for the very first time. Robin Young was there, and on that evening, no one was quite sure what to expect.
I really can't predict how many will come. Hopefully a lot of folks will show.
I was a little nervous this evening as I left work in anticipation of the evening. It was thinking about Edward's family and wondering, we are not sure just how receptive they are.
I'm just curious. I'm hoping to make some new friends and to see if there's anything further that this book will do.
There wouldn't be enough chairs in the room for all the curious, double what anyone dared hope for.
Hello, hello.
They would meet, but first they would listen to their painful shared legacy. They heard about the whippings, about the slave children born of slave owners. And after Ed spoke, he asked the descendants of slaves to stand.
Show yourselves.
Then the descendants of the slave owners.
What happened between my family and these other families was so disastrous that we can't possibly come to some closure about it, but we might have some partial reconciliation.
Nellie, may I introduce you to Dolores Singletary?
Yes. Hi, how are you?
Nellie Ball Brennan.
I sort of look at it as an accountability. That's kind of how I see it. We're just sort of claiming the past and being accountable to it.
Well, I'm glad to meet you.
I'm glad to meet you.
You read about some in the book?
Yes.
I'm glad you want to meet me.
African Americans who thought they knew each other well found out they had common ancestors. Dr. Robert Ball and nurse Charlotte Dunn worked together for years and just discovered their other link.
They're part of my family. I'm part of theirs.
The evening seemed to provide pieces to an old puzzle. One came in the form of this wooden peg. One of the Balls removed it from the now long-gone slave quarters when she was a child and wanted Dolores to have it.
What does that mean to you?
It was a home that they lived in. And this is actually a piece of the wood that was used to hold that place together. It's like reaching back in time and coming up with something tangible that you actually can touch. These were real people. They were human. They had feelings.
Your ancestors.
Yes, my ancestors were real.
Some acknowledgement Dolores Singletary had never had before, so obviously an emotional evening for her. But as Ed Ball says, this dialogue is far from over, and it's far from over on this set. Go, Robin, because I know you want to talk about this.
Well, you know, when I first heard about the book and we were discussing it, I was wondering what I want to know, because on both sides of my family, Roberts and my mother's maiden name Tolliver, were slaves. And would I want to meet somebody that owned my ancestors? It's just like the Ball family said, they all don't feel the need to apologize. I don't think all blacks feel the need to hear an apology. I think it's a very personal choice.
I think that's the point, that blacks have also earned the right not to be a monolith. They don't all speak in one voice.
And yet you were sort of tough yesterday, and clearly you were moved by this story, right?
Exactly. When you start seeing it, you get a little misty, and it is a link. It is an ugly chapter in American history that very few people want to talk about.
It's interesting. Ed Ball had some problems with a lot of the descendants of the slaves until he apologized, and that seemed to be the sort of the linchpin.
But you know, he's still unsure of how, they're all still unsure of how they feel about that, because there are so many other issues. It's if it's not we're not ready yet. There's so many things that need to be taken care of. One of the issues I just want to mention, and we heard a little of it in the radio call, that caller was so angry, is reparation. I want to make clear, there is no Ball money. In fact, some of the white descendants were shocked to hear that there had been money in the past. There's no money yet from the book.
They lost it all in the
They lost it in the Civil War, and Ed Ball is in deep debt in writing this book.
How much did he fork out?
Hundreds of thousands. Yeah. So right now the jury's out, and if he does make any money, he's going to try to think about what he might do with it then.
Robin, an amazing journey, and how lucky for you and for us that you were there.
It was a privilege to be there.
Good story.
Thank you.
All right, when GMA Sunday returns, Mr. Soy Bomb.
Boy, talk about a change of pace now.
Yeah.
If you're watching the Grammy Awards, somewhat 25 million viewers watched last week, then you'll recognize our next guest. Soy Bomb left his mark on that broadcast. There he goes, gyrating. Bob Dylan, give him some credit.
Yeah.
He never flinched.
Not once. He was a consummate professional. Look at him.
Well, he won 3 Grammys, so he's feeling pretty good that night.
This is him. His real name is Michael Portnoy. And Michael, welcome to our show. Wow. Now, you generated some buzz last week. I guess the big question is, what the heck were you doing on stage with Bob Dylan?
How'd you get there on stage?
I was hired to be an extra and to stand behind him in this kind of contrived Calvin Klein model setup behind him to provide him with a good vibe.
A good vibe.
And yes.
And
so I was supposed to be paid $200 to do that and nod my head and get into it.
And you decided at some point, you're a performance artist, and I'd like you to explain what that means.
Performance art is just a handy, it's a catch-all term for the combination of theater and music and solo performance.
And it's sort of what you're doing now, right, with the outfit you have on. That's a performance.
Well, I don't know if this is performance.
Maybe Sunday, but we don't know what he dresses like on Sunday mornings. This could be his regular garb.
I don't think so. You have hair on your, fake hair on your...
Well, this is the next step in facial hair.
Is it really? Mm-hmm. Okay, so when did you decide you were going to do this statement, this performance art? The night before? Mm-hmm. And what did you decide to do?
I knew that I was going to dance and have some kind of statement written on my chest.
And what does that statement mean?
Soy bomb, as I've told a lot of people so far, is soy bomb to me, soy in Spanish means I am, right. And also soy to me means this diverse, transformational, dense, explosive life.
And that's what you were doing on stage with Bob Dylan.
And that's what I think art should be, and that's what I think music and human relations should be, and that's what the Grammys have nothing to do with.
Just a couple seconds left. What's been the reaction so far?
It's been, I mean, I want like recognition from the art world and the academia for this to be, because this was a serious gesture of art, which comes from it's a part of a long tradition of subversion and iconoclasm, and the basic critique of art, the critique of art by art itself.
And you were not arrested that night?
No.
And you got paid. Thanks for joining us today, and now you've had your chance to explain it to the world. We'll be right back.
Stay with us.
Wow. Very good.
Thank you, gentlemen.
That'll wake everybody up.
Whoa.
That's a wake-up call.
Very interesting morning. We're hitting all the bases here.
From Soy Bomb to a group called the Niagaras, and unless you spend a lot of time on the club scene, you probably haven't heard of this group, but I think you will.
I think you will. The Niagaras. They are a performance art rock group that has become a favorite among the new generation of Hollywood stars. They're really hot with them.
You guys, can you handle all the celebrity over there?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Ritter. It's great ad lib there. Yes, we can handle it.
Wow.
Do I look all right?
Yes, you look fabulous.
Love the shirt, babe.
Yeah, can't wait for the interview segment. That's great.
I knew Soy Bomb when we were doing potato chip commercials in Amsterdam, so he's a He's a struggling actor like all of us.
The Niagaras will be along a little later to sing from their new CD.
And we're also going to meet Tom Harkin. He is from Beaumont, Texas. He's a self-made millionaire who overcame a secret shame. A remarkable story.
And in a few minutes, we're going to chat with, what's your title? Royal Watcher, is that right?
Yes, royal commentator or anything. I've been covering them since '74.
Well, that's...
And the eternal soap opera, The Unhappy Wives of Windsor.
Richard Meinhardt, I should
Good morning.
say.
Yeah.
Good morning. You're a royal watcher.
Well, I'm not a royal watcher, thankfully. I'm actually quite sane and ad-lib, but no, I mean, I have covered the royals for at that time.
Right.
So it's got infinitely more interesting in the last decade, though, as the soap opera has got grown and grown and grown.
And certainly in the last 6 months, you're going to keep us up to date, bring us up to date with what's happening with
Yep.
Princess Diana's wills, new developments there, and in the case around her tragic accident. We're going to move from gossip in England to gossip in Washington. Not that he's known for this at all, because that's not what he does, but a story has a lot of gossip. Sam Donaldson joining us, as he always does, for a little preview of This Week with Sam Donaldson and Cokie Roberts. Sam, you're sort of a royal watcher there in Washington?
Well, we don't have a king, of course, but we have a president at the moment he's under fire. We're going to be talking about the Monica Lewinsky case with Sidney Blumenthal's lawyer and others who will talk about the proposition of Ken Starr subpoenaing journalists and people to talk about their sources.
Now, for those,
it's kind of nuts.
For those in our audience who might not know who Sidney Blumenthal is, he is a White House staffer, but a longtime veteran reporter who has been subpoenaed before the grand jury.
Well, that's true. I noticed that the columnist Frank Rich in the New York Times said the other day he's the most reviled journalist of our time. Well, I don't know about that. I mean, there is lots of us in the running for that high honor.
Couldn't help but see the headlines in some of the tabloids yesterday, Sam, saying that there was floating some strategy that the White House might have, that the president might admit that he and Monica Lewinsky just kissed. The White House said no.
Well, that's a report on another network, and I can't match it because I don't know that it gets the president a lot. I mean, his story is he had no sexual relationship with that woman. If he says, well, but you know, we kissed a lot, but you have to believe that I never touched her. I don't know that gets him anything. His story is his story. The danger is that other witnesses come before the grand jury and they tell some different story, and that's where the danger of the president lies.
Right.
You know, Bill, excuse me, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, other than that, we're going to talk with Richard Butler. I mean, I wanted to move from this titillating.
Right. Well, I was going to ask you. Actually, let me lead into the Iraq thing, because we had more Dean on our show earlier this hour, and Robin asked him what a remarkable difference this Sunday was from last Sunday, when we seemed like we could be on the verge of war, and then we were on the verge of an agreement. The agreement is being pillarized by some people, some politicians, who are using it as an attempt to attack the United Nations.
Well, the most interesting thing this past week in Washington to me was how everyone tried to outdo each other in saying they didn't trust Saddam Hussein. I don't trust him. I don't trust him more than you don't trust him. No, I don't trust him more than... No one trusts Saddam Hussein. That's not the point. The point is, will he keep the agreement? And if you say, not in a pig's... Well, all right, fine. And in which case, we'll strike him, I suppose. That's the president's policy. But let's see. And Richard Butler, as you know, is the chief UN arms inspector. He's in charge of those people. So we'll be asking him. Now, the diplomats that are going to go into some of the locations, will they control, or will your inspectors control? And do you, Mr. Butler, as your boss, Kofi Annan, the UN Secretary General, says, think that you can do business with Saddam Hussein?
And his
answers,
answers,
be fascinating.
His answers later on This Week with Sam Donaldson and Cokie Roberts. Sam, as always, we'll see you next week.
Bill, bye.
All right.
And now to the real gossip. As we mentioned earlier, the last will and testament of Diana, Princess of Wales, is expected to be published sometime early this week. Early reports say lawyers have been working on rewriting the will ever since Diana's death 6 months ago in an effort to make sure it honors her true intentions. And joining us this morning, Royal Watcher, as we've said, Richard Meinhardt. Thank you very much for being here. And she first drew up the will in 1993, and it was kind of like someone telling her, you have to get a will together.
It was basically a basic will, and then 3 years later she made a slight alteration, naming another executor to go with her two sisters, Lady Jane Fellows, whose husband Robert is the Queen's private secretary, and Lady Sarah McCorquodale, because obviously then she was only, 33, and did not expect to have such an early demise. So obviously it also didn't include the 1997 divorce settlement from Prince Charles, which was reportedly about $25 million. So that also had to be added into the mix. And so under British law, changes can be made to the will if the named beneficiaries all agree and then it's approved by a legal court, and that's what's happened. Now, the will supposedly, and it's coming out tomorrow,
Right.
and you can actually line up at Somerset House in London, which is the English Records Office, and buy a copy. It's a 10-page document, and you can get it for about $1.50 if you want to have something. Not hopefully that it will be printed on tea towels, but quite frankly, given the crass commercialism with Diana, that wouldn't surprise me. But supposedly the will be about $35 million, because Diana was rich in her own right, because her late grandmother, Ruth Lady Fairmoy, who was the Queen Mother's lady-in-waiting, set up quite a trust fund for her when she was a young girl. And also another trust fund was set up of about $2 million by her late father, Earl Spencer. So there'll be quite a lot of money here. And according to reports, that about 2/3 of the will, about $25 million, will be split equally between her two young sons, Prince Harry, who's 13, and Prince William, who's 15. Because I had already heard that, in fact, Harry was going to get the bulk of the monies, because obviously as the youngest boy he doesn't automatically come into the fortune that comes with being Prince of Wales, which currently is about $12 million a year, which comes from the Duchy of Cornwall, because not only do you become Prince of Wales as heir to the throne, you take on the title Duke of Cornwall, and that brings you all this money in income, $12 million, which Charles gives 25% voluntarily as tax, and that of course William will come into, but of course Harry doesn't enjoy that kind of income.
Where can we sign up for this kind of stuff?
I tell you what,
Well, you
can
just
find it.
well, it's obviously an accident of royal birth.
That's what it is, yes,
and of course there's a great deal of money, because there's 128,000 acres that have belonged to Princes of Wales for some 650 years, including very choice residential areas of London that bring in a lot of monies, and that's basically the income that Prince Charles, as Prince of Wales, survives on, because unlike other members of the royal family, like the Queen, he does not get anything from the taxpayer, which is known as the British Civil List.
I just want to sit here and listen to you talk. I'm just like...
Should I leave a tape?
You are a royal watcher.
Yeah, I've been covering them since 1974.
Yeah.
But of course, back then there was a great deal more respect for the royal family. They were considered rather sacrosanct. But of course, in the last 10 years, they've become royal fodder, because there's been a lot of money to be made off them, particularly from Princess Diana, because anything with her on the cover eclipsed any sales that any magazine ever had before.
Well, thank you for doing a royal job.
Well, thank you very much.
Nice having you with us, Richard.
Up next, the story of a successful businessman who might just give you a different read on life. You want to hear the story.
Thank you, Richard.
This is a story we hope to bring you last week, and I promise you it's worth the wait. The life story of Tom Harkin is a heartwarming tale of perseverance and success. But for a long time, it seemed like Tom would never get to read it himself.
Was the food okay? Was it good? I like it. Do you like it? How about loving it?
Tom Harkin calls himself a little short fat guy in Beaumont, Texas, who makes tacos for a living.
Pick up. You know, I always think it's a dream, you know. I just can't believe we've come this far.
In fact, Tom Harkin makes lots of tacos. He's now a millionaire and owns 12 franchises of Casa Olé, a family-style Mexican restaurant in Texas and Louisiana. But to get there, Tom endured a lifetime of humiliation. For more than 50 years, he had a closely guarded secret. Until his mid-30s, Tom could neither read nor write.
When you can't read and write, you feel like you're the only person in the world that can't read or write. And I just felt very, very useless, totally useless, and it was tough.
At an early age, Tom was diagnosed with polio and put into the hospital in an iron lung, a casket-like machine that helped him breathe.
The only thing sticking out is your head. And before very long, you know, they turn the light out at night, and you're 6, 7 years old, and you start crying and say, God, why am I here?
1 year later, Tom's parents brought him home, only to find out that he had come down with tuberculosis. For the next 3 years, Tom was quarantined into one room of the house.
My dad had to leave, my mother stayed, and she'd bring me the food, knock on the door, and back off, and I'd look at her.
After years of missing school, he was finally ready to go back. What happened on that first day changed his whole life.
The teacher put me in the front row, and as I didn't want to go in the front row because I was embarrassed.
The teacher asked him to go to the blackboard and spell the word cat. Tom panicked.
And I couldn't get it out. And he said, just go sit down. And I said, yes, sir. And I went home that day and never did go back.
From then on, Tom never learned to read or write, and he was forced to deal with a lifetime of illiteracy. Later, he joined the Air Force.
Somebody filled out the forms for me to get into service, and I met a lady by the name of Miss Melba.
He finally got it out that he had not gone to school very much, and that the kids at school had always called him Dummy Bell, and that he could not read.
Miss Melba soon became Tom's wife and teacher. Tom went into the vacuum cleaner business and later bought a motorhome dealership.
And I had a lot of counting to do.
She had a lot of counting to do.
Melba did the paperwork. Tom worked from memory. But by Tom's mid-30s, Miss Melba had taught him how to read at a basic level. For years, they never told anyone that Tom was illiterate, not even their own children.
I can still remember them hopping on my lap and wanting them to read them a story. And Mel would quickly grab them off my lap many years and would read cover for me.
It was a deep, dark secret.
We didn't tell anybody until December 10th, 1991.
That's when Tom found out that along with people like Henry Kissinger, Clarence Thomas, and Maya Angelou, he had been chosen to receive the 1992 Horatio Alger Award, recognizing people from humble beginnings who achieve remarkable success.
Well, what a day.
Miss Melba convinced Tom that that was the time to reveal his secret.
I was illiterate. I was a dummy bell who couldn't read or spell.
Today, Tom tells his secret over 100 times a year in speeches around the country to promote literacy. And just 5 years ago, he finally received his high school diploma at the age of 56.
That's probably one of the proudest moments that I ever had in my life.
But Miss Melba says Tom can't stop until he does one last thing.
And that is, he has to write me a love letter.
Dear Miss Melba, I love you, and only you, always.
Oh, what a wonderful story.
It really is. You know, usually he dictates his love letters to someone, and he's still very self-conscious about his reading and writing. And Miss Melba says, no, you've got to do it yourself. I want that love letter.
Interesting. You know, he was in the hospital.
Right.
He wasn't read to as a child, and you know, now we know how important it is for kids to be read to when they're very young, and how that helps their reading development.
But this was a time when his particular illness was very scary to people, and they didn't want to be around him. And also, it teaches you also about the need of having good teachers. That first day he went back, the first day he goes back to school, and that teacher puts him in the front row, asks him to speak, to spell cat, and he had that negative reaction. But he is a remarkable person, and he also encourages for the Literacy Volunteers of America. If you're at home and you're in a similar situation, go to a library. There are volunteers there. And as Tom Harkin says, all you have to say is, I need help.
And proving once again, behind every great man, there's a
Miss Melba.
There you go.
There's a Miss Melba.
All right, when we come back, hit it, guys. What do you think? The Niagaras. There we go.
Hit.
The Niagaras will perform for us when GMA Sunday continues. Stay with us.
This week, can having more love and intimacy in your life make you healthier? The link between love and survival. Plus, do you know what over-the-counter drugs and prescriptions are really doing to your body? We'll show you how to find out.
On Good Morning America.
Here on ABC.
I like this. We're already dancing before the music starts.
We know it's coming, that's right.
We're ready. You know, when we told our staff we had booked Niagaras, all the young people went, yes, right, they are the hottest group. And then those over a certain age said, who? You booked the whole waterfall? What's going on here?
That's what Bill said.
Oh,
that's
look,
what Bill said.
he likes you, Rob.
Keep talking.
All right, well, I'll just say, the fan club roster for the Niagaras sounds like really a cast list for the young, hip, and Hollywood group. Uma Thurman likes them, so does Brad Pitt, Gwyneth Paltrow, Danny DeVito. Now, he's over a certain age. This is a G-rated show there.
It's a morning show.
Yeah. All right, well, let's just introduce them. Who the heck are the Niagaras?
My name is Robert Whaley.
Hello, Robert.
Hi, how are you?
Nice to meet you.
We should.
Robin, you already know.
Introduce your band, Robert.
Tony Grimaldi on guitar.
Tony.
Mark Slutsky on the drums. Thomas Hutchins on the saxophone.
Okay.
Brian Hobbs on the bass.
You guys
you
are
like
the hottest group around right now.
I'm very hot. I'm very hot. I'm so hot.
Not as hot as I am right now.
Yes, I know. You're blushing. And that's a hard thing right now.
Those are hot flashes. It's common in women of your age.
Mr. Whaley? Oh, God.
You see, but that's what he does.
No,
that's
no,
what you do.
no.
Because you do that Ethan Hawke and everyone's
no.
You know, that's a cue for music. It's called the Niagaras Report from the Interior. The song is called Pieces to Fall. The Niagaras.
Enjoy.
Thank you so much.
I never get the pieces to fall. Try, baby. This time was supposed to be different. I thought I had a plan which could just not fail. I was gonna change my surroundings, because around here, baby, you know what? New York City got a little stale. Oh yeah, used to work in the same guy building, picking up on the fire escape, yeah. Oh yeah, come on now. See how it went for the other guys. They never seem to drop the ball. I really mean it when I say yeah. I never get the pieces to fall. Never get the pieces to fall. I said yes, but I'm sorry, Your Honor, I was lying. Never get the pieces to fall. Am I wrong to keep on trying? I'm in a terrible 3rd Avenue delicatessen. I can imagine you living your life in Los Angeles. I love the sight of your child. That little girl, Bernadette, looks exactly like her pretty mom. She don't, well, don't send any more long letters. I don't coming up at 3 a.m. A masterpiece turned out to be a fake game, and the place turned out to be a sham. You see how it works with other guys who never seem to drop the ball. I really mean it when I say go. I never get the pieces to fall. I never get the pieces to fall. I swear to God, I wish I could, but I can't. I'm trying. Oh, you gotta know that I never get the pieces to fall. Am I wrong to keep on trying? Come on. Oh gosh, no love, no prospects. But once I had all three, I am not afraid of failure. It is not afraid of me. Unfortunately, you just wait and see. Oh, come on. Never get the pieces right in my life. In my lonely
Good Morning America Sunday is brought to you by MCI 5 Cent Sundays.
My heart's racing.
I'll tell you.
Feet are pounding. A couple of program notes before we talk about our arteries. Later this morning on This Week with Sam and Cokie, details on the possible deal between the UN and Iraq, and on the showdown between the White House and Special Prosecutor Ken Starr. Later, World News Tonight Sunday, the controversy over what the English see as an attack on their way of life, an attempt to ban fox hunting.
And here's Lisa McCree with a look at what's on Good Morning America tomorrow.
Tomorrow in our Love, Sex, Etc. feature, how to save your marriage. Plus, spring breaks for the entire family and Cal Ripken tomorrow on Good Morning America.
Wow, you guys, a little low energy, sort of.
Yeah, especially for a Sunday morning, we're looking for a little bit more energy.
Yeah.
Thanks, baby.
I know it's hard for you to stay away. I know, Robert.
Mr. Whale, you guys are very hot. Are you liking this new celebrity you guys have found?
Heck, y'all. Good morning tomorrow. We're going to be talking to our
We're going to say goodbye now before it gets X-rated.
Saddam Hussein. I will interview him.